FF14 is a hit mobile game designed by Team Ninja featuring characters from the Final Fantasy franchise, and adding a fairly sensible gacha so you can obtain new gear that... Wait, no, that's the city, I will Omnia. Final Fantasy XIV is the critically acclaimed MMORPG that will steal your soul, control your brain, and access your bank account without your consent. The game stands out from all the competition by the simple fact that people actually recommend you give it a try and enjoy yourself. And while I do in fact appreciate the community, this video is more likely a rant that might upset people, so I will pause the humor to add a little disclaimer. This video might just be about a tiny fraction of players. This might not apply to you, but you might be curious on why I titled the video the way I did. If you are someone with experience with this topic, I encourage you to share your stories, agreements, or disagreements below. Because the fact that you got to me instead of all the handsomer, better sounding, smarter, and more put together creators means you're probably passionate, or incredibly bored. Thank you all regardless. This video is not about hating on new players or mentors, and is not meant to promote hate against new players or mentors. I shouldn't have to say this, but just in case, let's get that out of the way, okay? Now first, let's trim the meat in case you have no background in FF14. It breaks the usual mode in MMOs by requiring players to follow a story to unlock areas, fights, and overall just to be able to play each expansion's content individually. In this regard, the game is a lot more like a linear JRPG than it is an MMO. The story of this game will get you into the 100 hours of gameplay alone. As a matter of fact, when you start the game, you'll receive a sprout icon on your character. You are free to toggle off this icon if you desire, but the sprout icon is meant to indicate a new player in the game, so people are more forgiving and mindful around them. That's all well and good. You lose the qualification for that icon with 300 hours of playtime and entering the last expansion currently, Endwalker. So to reiterate what is being said there, you can have 10 whole days of gameplay with your character and still be considered a new adventure. But the community is in general pretty nice to sprouts. I can't say for everyone, there's always a few impatient people, but in general they will wait for you to watch cutscenes, they will revive you if you die. It's not a stressful thing to be at all, no one is gonna kick you out of their party, it's fine. The majority of players on this game are not gonna be openly talking very much in duties and stuff like that. For the main reason that anything that can be said that can constructing as picking a fight or starting an argument might eventually land you in a report and get you suspended or talking to a GM or ban, and people generally avoid that. Now, if your name is not Elon Musk and you're not someone that's actually identified as a GigaChat online, that might be obvious why it's such a pointless thing to argue about. You're old enough to realize it's not worth picking a fight, and starting a screaming contest of people online is probably not get whatever you're trying to accomplish done anyway, so just be quiet. So where am I going with all of this? Well, you see, new players are still required to do content with the other players to progress their story. I mean, there's no issue with that, it's an MMO, people should want to play together. Not quite. Issues do exist, and they are not few, and not far between. And the first thing I want to address here is that it's a nightmare to play this game alongside someone else that just started the game with you, because everyone is doing story at their own pace. There is no such thing as co-op cutscene watching. You just have to get to the same duties and do them together. It's unlikely that you're gonna have all the people you require for every duty, so you're gonna have to get more people involved. And the likelihood that you're gonna get all the new players wanting to do the same thing is so low, especially considering you have all those different worlds, those different data centers, even maybe different instances to come through. It's not gonna happen. Now, one of the modern solutions to a situation like this is just matchmaking. You just get people who are interested in the same kind of content, shove them into the same party, go do content, no headaches. In FF14, granted you're not a free trial player, you have the option of using Party Finder. In the Party Finder, you can list your duty, what you need for your party, and then just find people who want to do the same thing as you do, and just go in. Now, of course, because of the unlikelihood that you're gonna find people wanting or willing to do the dungeon that was released 10 years ago as a new player, you also have the duty finder that acts like the matchmaking in FF14. You are likely to find people there who want to do stuff like that with you because of a feature called duty roulettes, and I will go over them shortly. A few times are going to be heavily influenced by what role you're playing, what piece of content it is, and what roulettes it even fits in. And since duty roulettes are an incredibly effective way of leveling all the jobs you can have on your single character who have a different level pool, they are very popular. And while the rewards attached to them are limited to one a day, it's still a lot of people queuing up for one thing a day, every day, to level their new jobs. Now put a pin on that, what I just said, and keep that for later. Another way to help new players not be stuck in queue and be able to breeze through the early story quicker was the introduction of trusts. The duty trust system, originally for Shadowbringer duties, they have since added support to A Realm Reborn and Heavensward duties, so they can be done using a team of NPCs, even reworking some other dungeons in the process. So there's incredibly lengthy things just to say that has never been a better time to start an FF14 if you're interested. New players are the life of the game, and I generally think it's worth the free trial you get. Now with that out of the way, let's get back to the topic of duty roulettes. Different duties have different roulettes. But very briefly, you have leveling, which adds the first to the last dungeons included in the story of every expansion. A roulette that combines all the dungeons released for the level cap for their corresponding expansions, so starting at 50 and increases by 10 each time all the way to level 90. A roulette for the normal trials, which are the big 8-man fights included in the story, but also all the side content ones with their own side stories. A roulette for main scenario that includes the 3 duties in A Realm Reborn with dozens of minutes of unskippable cutscenes and with a massive reward attached to it. The normal raids encompass the story mode of all the late game raids of every patch. Just like with trials, there are 8-man fights and also feature an optional, much harder version of the fights that is not related to the story but drops the best gear every patch. And then you have Alliance raids, the 24-man instances with 3 separate 8-man parties in essentially a longer than usual dungeon with a much more demanding than usual dungeon bosses. There are also the Guild Heist roulette, which are completely pointless and have pretty much abandoned content that are just there because they're there. And then you have Mentor roulette, which encompasses all of those other roulettes and a little bit more, but I'll get to it later. You also have the Frontlines roulette, which is PvP if you want some extra rewards and do a big fight, sure. All of those roulettes have a reward attached, which give you tomestones, XP and stuff like that. When you get into a duty, if you're above the level cap, the game will sink your level down and you will only have access to the kit you should have at that level range. Generally speaking, none of the content of those duties should be challenging for anyone who experience in the game. They're there to help people level, help Sprouts beat the game, and then move on once you've done your daily reward claim. If a Sprout just has an interest of blasting to a piece of content, it is possible that a level 90 can help them. You can use unlimited parties to put a level 90 player on a level 50 duty and they were just gonna destroy it within a handful of minutes. Now obviously that turns the Sprout into a spectator rather than a participant in the story and makes it very boring. People usually make use of that feature for farming mounts and killing all their fights for whatever they want, or maybe even going into a dungeon for a piece of glamour. Now there's not a very big active community that wants to do old Savage and Extreme fights synced. Mostly people just get level 90s and stomp the hell out of it. Extreme fights are just harder version of the normal trials, and usually trying to go blind and just bashing your head against it is gonna be a bad idea. It's gonna take forever and you might not clear before the time is over. For that reason, the majority of people would advise you that either you do it unsynced or you put up a party finder instead of trying to queue for it, because people are not gonna be coordinated if they randomly got queued into it. And in fact, there is only one way to get queued into, say, the extreme fights in the first place, and that is the Mentor roulette. You either directly queue for that extreme trial, or you get it by being on the Mentor roulette. But clearing those extreme fights is a part of the requirements to unlock the Mentor roulette in the first place. However, doing it completely synced and not just stomping the hell out of it with a level 90 is not. And you might think I'm about to say, extreme trials are too hard and it shouldn't be on the Mentor roulette. That Square Enix should just remove the queue function from them altogether and force people to make party finder missing or unsync it. And those are reasonable concerns. Concerns I empathize with, but I don't agree. Extremes aren't too hard, and teaching them isn't impossible. But you just create a queue that features a level 10 Guild Heist and level 80 Extremes all in one. This is the biggest, most concerning part of this roulette. So it is not unreasonable to think that a mentor is gonna pop the extreme that someone queue, get in, see what's happening, don't know how to direct the party, and then leave. The issue really isn't that extremes are unkillable, the issue is that they're paired together with stuff that is completely trivial that pretty much any player could do. And the second issue is related to that, but also builds up on it. A mentor duty can take 25 seconds or an hour. Main scenario being included means you can get a dungeon with 20 minutes of cutscenes you cannot skip without the rewards attached for it. If anyone does main scenario roulette and you ask them why they do it, the answer is probably gonna be because this gives me like a full level. Just to queue for mentor roulette, you have to use a max level job, and you have to have some gear on it. The likelihood that there are people queuing for main scenario roulette on max level jobs is very low. Doing the duty anyway without the rewards attached to it is even lower. And look, I get it, there's people who just like being helpful, they just like being friendly, they just like seeing the Sprouts go about their business and finish the story. There are a lot of people who will stay on the duty and finish it because it's just a considered thing to do. They don't want to be mean or rude to new players, and they just do it anyway because they can just look at their phone and be on Twitter the entire time. There's also the people who are gonna see what they got and just leave instantly. The daily reward for the mentor roulette is laughable. It's completely ignorable. The one silver lining that the mentor roulette has for those achievement hunters and stuff like that is that there is the hardest mount to get in the game, which is complete 2000 mentor roulettes. So let me reinstate that. There is a reason why people will want to do as many mentor roulettes as quick as possible. And I don't honestly think that's an issue. The issue comes when you realize the fastest way to do that is to eliminate the new players from the equation. I don't think there's anything nefarious about incentivizing mentors with rewards to do mentoring. I think it's a fairly common thing that a lot of people would agree. Mentors should get something from being like able to queue on everything. But the way they did it, they just incentivized mentors or groups to form their own ways of farming the mentor roulette. I'll get to it in another video later. So to recap everything. The mentor roulette has a high cap of difficulty between one duty and another. The mentor roulette has a hard gap of duration from one duty to another. And the mentor roulette biggest incentive is to do a lot of them, because the daily rewards are just simply a joke. Now, because I know listening to me is not easy, and this is gonna be very long, I will keep this short and just skip this to this video. This is just the basic setup for what I'm gonna talk about on the next video. I'll touch on how people are farming mentor roulette clears, how they're farming mentor status, and stuff like that. For now, if you're interested, make sure to show support to the channel, and thank you for watching. You gotta do the pee pee poo poo. Pee pee poo poo. I will never hear the song without the pee pee poo poo ever again.